So I kind of changed a few things. There is now a general idea of a game, but yeah, we're going to go through it a bit later. Not right now, it's not important. So what we're going to work today is actually some level generation, and then later we're actually going to add some randomization to it. So let's create a new folder where we're going to call this levels. Okay, so here's the idea. We're first going to create a first object that is going to include a few slots on it. Then on each slot on that game object, we're actually going to create more rooms, which those rooms will have their own slots, and then we will go progressively from there until you actually finish a level, or of course we're going to put a limit as to how many rooms you can place through each level. Okay, each level will also consist of a boss area, which has to be placed, it has to be placed of at least some X amount of rooms after those have been placed. We will also maybe put a lock onto there. Maybe you have to complete a short objective first before you go to the boss, stuff like that. Okay, the concept is taken from the Callis dungeons. I know they're not that popular, but whatever, it works for me. So let's see how to do that. So first of all, we're going to have to create something that we're going to be calling this a level template, because each level we don't want to just throw in random prefabs from any level we have to create. We're going to separate each prefab to its own position and into its own template pretty much. So let's delete all of that and let's create a namespace for that, and this now will be a scriptable object. Let's put another namespace over here just so that we do not confuse every time we try to write something. So we're going to have to create a new class of, let's call it room holders. Right now we only need a game object for this, which is going to be your prefab. Now there's two ways we can do this. We can start with what we're going to call a module, which will be the base of your level, or we can just start with rooms that each connect one to the other. Okay, the only problem with that will be we might end up with rooms that do not have multiple slots. One slot will always be used for entry and one slot will always be used for exit. Okay, so let's go without the module. Let's go with just this. So we're just going to keep a room holders. Okay, so let's assume this is our level for now. And before we go here, let's also create the asset menu. Then let's go and create the level maker, quote unquote. Let's create a new class, more behavior, and let's call this level manager. Now this will run, of course, on model behavior. So we're going to have, let's also make this as levels, and we're going to have to assign a level template to this. At first, we're going to do this randomly. We're going to just hard code it, not randomly. On start, well, let's just wait from start. Let's just do public void create level. Now, the simplest idea of this is we're going to keep track of rooms. Okay, either this way or let's say maximum rooms. Then we're going to keep a list, don't have to be public. Of game objects, rooms created, or created rooms, better. Okay, so let's start. And we're going to use a recursive operation, so we'll do void create room, and we can say from this level template. So, well, let's do the simplest thing of all. Random.range 0 from t dot room holders dot length. Okay, then get the room holder. Then we basically have our prefab. Okay, so we're going to say game object geo instantiate random.prefab. We should probably place this someplace, but well, the first object we create, the first room we're going to create, doesn't really matter at all. Okay, because it can be placed anywhere and we will take it from there. So I guess we could just say just place it on 0, 0, 0, but whatever. So how do I know where I'm going to place the next object and the next room and the next room? So how do I know which is the entry point and which isn't? So for that, I'm actually going to create a new script where I'm going to say room slot. Now this will be used as a tag mostly, so it's just going to be a component where we're going to add it inside our prefabs. So in the level manager, we're going to say find any room slot you have is under the game object we just created. Then for each room slot you have in slots, we're going to say create room. Now we can pass the position and the rotation for each object, which means we can say create room. We already have the level template. The position we want will be the s.transform.position and s.transform.rotation. Okay, for the very first one, we're just going to say vector 3.0 vector quaternion.identity. That's about it. Okay, so if we say now created rooms dot add game object, we're going to be adding, of course. Then we're going to say if created rooms dot count is over the maximum rooms we have allowed, then simply return. We can actually do this here as well, so we stop the recursive before they actually start creating them. Okay, so now we have a recursive operation that is going to basically create rooms for as much as we have this. Then let's say on start create level, and let's go create a few prefabs. We're going to change the scene. We're going to create this into its own scene. We don't really need it at the moment. So let's create a new scene. Actually, I'm going to duplicate this because we kind of want this to be an empty scene entirely. So this will be the level scene. Let's rename this level, and we're going to delete what? Oh, that's the new one. Okay, that's the wrong level. I wanted to replicate the hub scene because it's an empty scene. It doesn't even have skybox, nothing. So this will be now our level. let's open this up. We are on level and let's delete everything. Of course, we don't need a camera because we're going to bring our own. So let's call this level manager. Let's assign the level manager, and now we need to create the templates and the prefabs and so on and so on. So let's see. Let's go under resources and let's say folder. Let's call this level templates. Actually, we don't really need to have them inside the resources, but okay, it won't really matter. Let's create a level template, test template, and now I can assign rooms to all of this. Okay, so let's create some prefabs for them. Let's say test template, prefabs. So how should a prefab look? Of course, it would be an empty game object at first. Then it will have some form of art below it. Let's just use some generic props from this. Let's say prefabs, let's say environments. Well, actually something like this will make it seem more clear, because it's pretty precise as to where a room can be placed, because there is slots to this. So let's say we're going to use one of them, the bridge. Okay, then on this bridge I'm going to assign an empty slot, and we're going to say this room slot. Okay, let's change this into red. Let's make it so it's visible. So let's find a position and clamp this. Now, depending on how you want to create your prefabs, that might change. So let's say we place this at 0. Okay, we have one slot here and we have one more slot over here. So this prefab will actually spawn 2 slots. Will actually spawn 2 more until, of course, we reach the final one. So let's save this as a prefab. Now this is really an over exaggeration. You probably want to create, rooms with doors and stuff like that. So some form of an internal dungeon or something like that. But yeah, so far, let's see, let's create another one. Prefab 2. And let's find something more generic. Environments. I don't know what's this. Fantasy Kingdom. Okay. Obviously, use your imagination. Let's say we're going to use flat farm. Okay. So here's the thing. We now need to be placing a slot of where it's going to be placed. So we actually need 2 types of yeah, actually, you know what, that's kind of yeah, okay. So here's the thing. So you see this object, you see this is the pivot of our room. I'm going to move this up to here, so because we're going to be placing the game object over here and it's going to be rotating like this. Okay, then from this object I'm going to actually create 2 more slots. For example, let's say that this is a slot, this is a prefab that can actually spawn 3 ways, and it can connect from here. Okay, now we need to take into account where your object is looking. Okay, because any room is going to be spawned from here. So this one is looking at the wrong place. That should be correct. And now let's place one right over here. So we have 4 entries, 4 slots onto this. The first one is where we create the object, unless it's the first object that is going to be created. Okay, so we also need to fix our bridge. But first let's make this into a prefab. Delete that and let's open up now this prefab and let's fix a bridge. So I'm going to remove one slot. And now we're going to move everything. I can just drop the slot over here. We're going to move everything to be right onto the pivot of the prefab. So over here, take this and move it aside. Okay. So I think we need to put it a little bit below this line. And actually, there's a simpler way to do this. Just take the prefab and unpack it. Then I'm going to unparent this and I'm going to move this right where it needs to be, or we can just place this over here and we say keep it at 0. At X it's at 0. I think it's about 10. Yeah, that's 10. We kind of need to bring this up a little bit. So over here and then reset this to 0. Okay, then unparent it, parent it again, and there we go. We have our prefab from here, and of course you see one small problem. It's rotated the other way. So it should be like this. Perfect. Now we got our prefab. Let's replace the old one and delete this, and let's go assign our test template. Let's only use the 2 of them right now, first one and second one. So when I hit play now, let's put the game scene down here. We don't really need to be seeing it, and I can assign a level template, and now it's going to create 10 rooms placed on top of placed on all the slots we've added. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so all of them are created. Let's see. Okay, so they're kind of messed up a little bit. Or, well, actually, where are them? Yeah, so most of them just created on top of each other because we forgot to actually use the position we're passing. Okay, so now this will work like a real level. There's going to be some small issues, and you'll see them where, but we can eliminate those with some, well, with a few tricks. You'll see them. Okay, so here's the level. Let's count them. We have one prefab, second prefab. Now that is a bit of an issue, and this happened because we have, I think this one got spawned by this one. Yeah, okay. We can't really actually tell it this way, so what we're going to do, we're also going to be passing the game of the transform as a parent. So each one will be parented underneath the previous object. Okay. Unless it's the first one where it's just going to be parented nowhere. Just so that we know what spawns what. So as you see, we still get the same result, almost the same result. So we have prefab 1. This prefab spawned this prefab, which is actually looking it's actually looking the wrong way, I think. No, it's looking the correct way, but the local is at the wrong position. Yeah, the slot is at the wrong position. Yeah, okay. I think we have two wrong. So let's fix them. Yeah, this is wrong. Let's parent all of them below here. This is really wrong. It needs to be rotated like 180 degrees. And then let's move this over here. Let's say 5. Okay, so we should always be at the positive. Okay, because that, let's take a look again at this one. This one looks correct. Let's see the slot. The slot is looking inwards. Okay, so just rotate this here. So only the pivot object needs to be looking forward of the object. Okay, and the slots should look away from the main object. So let's hit play again, and we should have a more correct level. And there we go. You see that there's no overlapping objects. So okay, so this creates you a level. Okay, so technically this one should be spawning another object and another object and another object. Okay, the only question is why. Well, I think we're running out of slots because yeah, I think we're running out of slots because we are doing this. So if we say that we increase, actually let's take a look at the level manager. So we do create a new slot, but I think we kinda increase. Yeah, if we move this down here, we should get more rooms to be created at the first slots and then on the any subsequent slots. Let's hit play. Now there's other ways to do this kind of stuff, but we'll see. Yeah, as you can see, now we're starting to get a little bit of a better result. So now what this gives us is it creates the first one, and it only creates this. Then this one it populates first everything else, then goes to the next one that it populates the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and up till the last one. Now, of course, these are really simple prefabs, and what you can do with this is to basically just have yeah, you don't have to just create small flat room, although you can't, but you might get with more weird results. Let's say we want to create 50 rooms. You can just create a big chunk of a room and actually just, place them around. Okay. You see that, of course, this is like 50 rooms now with all colliders and stuff like that. So that's why it's a bit complaining right now. If you set all of them to static, it might help a little bit, but it's going to take a while till it's been calculated. So let's close it before we crash. So, okay, let's say 10 rooms. Now we can do some things to help this, and that will be to actually make all of them inside a coroutine. And we can just make this into a coroutine actually. Enumerator, yields, return, break. Okay, and then let's make this into a numerator. Create level, yield, return, create room, and this will wait until this is done. Then for this one we could just create, well, we can help this a little bit. Yeah, we can help this a little bit differently. Let me think. First of all, this needs to be start coroutine. Create level. Okay, then in here, or actually, yeah, okay, let's start from here. You can just create a list of room slots. Okay, then in here, we're actually going to, I think we don't need the parent anymore. So we're going to be passing a referenced list of room slots. Oh, it's an iterator, yeah, so we can't do that. Well, we can, however, do this and access this as a public variable. Okay. Okay, no biggie. So instead of adding each slot, instead of creating them here, we're basically going to be saying slots add range, not these slots. Let's call them S or SS slots dot add range the sub slots. Okay, then since we now have all of them, we could be saying while created rooms dot count is less than the maximum rooms, yield return create room. We have our template. Well, we don't really need to be passing the template. We have it above, so whatever. There's our level template. So create room. Slots 0 dot transform dot position slots 0 dot transform dot rotation. Then we also need to say if slots dot count is greater than 0, just in case you only want to spawn one slot, because it might be the case if you have a boss or something. Okay, so we have slots count greater than 0, okay, and after that you'll do slots 0 slots dot remove at 0. Okay, and this will create you a level both asynchronously and yeah, for as much as you want. So let us say we want to create 20 rooms. Let's also say that we want the created object to be static. But yeah, okay, it's only editor only, so whatever, I guess. So let's do 20 rooms. Now it won't really make a big of a difference. I will see it right now. Okay, so there it is asynchronously. Now, as I said, you'll see that there is a few cases that those overlap. There is a few objects that overlap. One way to fix this is to make sure you only have slots that go one way. For example, if I remove this and this, there is a chance, well, with this case, because this one is also going like this, so there's only going into one direction, they will never overlap because each one will be placed after the next one, after the next one, after the next one. Of course, this can be hidden by adding some sideways movement, going like that. Maybe this is, you know, on top of a wall or something like that. Could be like the other level we were using before. Okay, use your imagination to that. But that's kind of, let's say, the limitation, if you want. Okay, if I say, for example, started doing things like this, well, I'm sure you're going to recognize this later. You're going to realize them. Okay, you see that because it's basically going into, again, onto one direction, we're basically doing some cycle. Yep, we're just moving around, you know, in a circle movement. Now, also, you don't really need to be strict at how these are created. You can just say, go like this. You don't have to be precise onto the grid. Okay, so use your imagination. You can see that this is, if it's used correctly, and if it's used creatively, I'd say, not correctly, you can just create any type of level you want, and I'm sure you can see the potential to this. Okay, another thing we can do is, of course, also create rules for all of them. So, for example, we can say do not create the previous object. Okay, so we could say game object get prefab or get random prefab, and let's say we have a list. Let's just use only one actually. Exclude. Okay, so we're going to say game object go equals or result equals null, return the result, then while result is null or result equals exclude, okay, you get a random, and then result equals level template room holders result result random actually. Okay, so this will now return you random dot prefab. Okay, so this now, if you pass a game object over here, it will basically just find you any object. It will just keep adding random until it's not. Okay, so you cannot use the game object actually, because the game object already, it will be another instance. So you actually need to use the room holder, not the game object. Okay, so room holders exclude, and then this needs to be a room holder, this as well. Okay, and then this should be deleted. Okay, so get random prefab, we can also pass the room holder over here. Then we can also keep track of all the room holders we have. Used rooms. So create room. Used rooms, we can just say null. Don't really care about that. So create room, and then we're going to say used rooms 0. Okay, then used rooms 0 dot remove at 0. okay. Then get random prefab, result, exclude room holder, random range, okay. Then down here, instead of this, say get random prefab and exclude this. This is going to be null, so it's just going to ignore it. And then I'll actually just use this, use it over here. And of course we have to use the used rooms dot add row, which is the new room. So let's give this a shot. This should now exclude any object that, yeah, it should exclude, so you won't have two of the same rooms in sequence with each other. Okay, so that actually didn't work, but it did work. The only problem is, let's pause for a second, and we're going to go step by step. So, first room. That room is not the same as this room, obviously. The next room is this, but you see that it's been added into a different slot. It's not added into this slot. So, because we just go progressively with all of them, you can see that it's basically, we kind of end up with the same result, which is not really, it's not necessarily wrong, it's just not exactly what we want to have over here. So I think I'm going to end this video over here. This is our first taste of some procedural generation for this project. Of course, we have done a lot more different things. We even have a dungeon creator that we did way in the back. So, and yeah, on the next one, I'm actually just going to try and create a few prefabs for this. So just to showcase you what I have in mind. And then on the next one, we're going to actually just create, we're going to create more rules for each one of them. And then of course, we will also need to add enemies into this, which they also need to have their pathfinder, their, well, pretty much their everything, to be honest. So that's it for this part. As always, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and if you like to see more videos, more stuff, more series, more of everything, of course, which I know you do, since, you know, this is, we're close to 300 videos. I think we might be even past that. Anyway, I'll see you on the next one. You know the deal. Support on Patreon, and so on, and so on, and so on.